Meanwhile, tampering with witnesses. This is what special counsel Robert Mueller is accusing former Trump campaign manager Paul Manafort of doing while under house arrest. Manafort's hearing is set for next Friday. Here now is Republican Congressman Louie Gohmert from Texas, who's on the House Judiciary Committee and was a judge before he became a congressman, so he's well equipped to deal with all these issues. The main issue, Congressman, is where does Mueller stop? I mean, so many of what he's going after has nothing to do, as far as we can tell, with the scope of his investigation, and yet I don't think we've yet to see that scope memo.
No, we haven't yet, and we need to, because he is so far off the farm. But it's a federal statute, Section 1512, tampering with a witness, victim, or informant. It's ridiculous. It's the kind of thing that a bully, a blowhard, a mean guy, all of which Mueller is, would use to try to intimidate people. We're told, gee, the witness seems a little scared after getting a message from Manafort. I don't know Manafort. I probably would never want to hang around with him, not my kind of guy. But the fact is, Mueller is a bully, and any innocent person in America has got to be scared as long as Mueller has any law enforcement authority. It is a scary thing.
Well, let me just ask you to pull back for a second. I don't want to get too much into the weeds of this.
This is ridiculous, though.
I understand. There are a lot of weeds, but as a former judge, when you were a judge sitting on a bench, you must have seen prosecutors trying to make a big name for himself. I know Mueller has a distinguished career. He's an older gentleman in his 70s, but
he's destroyed a lot of innocent people.
He seems like he's on a mission to get the president come hell or high water. Am I wrong?
That's exactly, and that's his mode of operation. He has done it repeatedly. He wanted to destroy Stephen Hatfield, who had nothing to do with anthrax, so he destroyed his life. He wanted to keep people in prison that his FBI agents had framed in Boston, so he kept writing letters to keep them in prison, even though everybody knew they had been framed. His mode of thinking is, if I dislike you, then I need to find something to try you for, because I don't like you, and because I'm holy,
but Congressman,
you must be a bad person.
We are a nation of laws, not of men. And the fact is that there are certain guidelines and restrictions that prosecutors have to go. That's why we have to see what his scope is. If he has gone beyond his scope,
David,
we have to pull him back.
The guy is off the charts. He has got to be reined in. Rosenstein is certainly not going to do it, because they worked together with Weissman to kill the Russia investigation, at least temporarily, so that Hillary could make sure the uranium got sold and they could get the $145 million. So he has other motivations for keeping this thing going on and on. But let me tell you,
we're not going to know whether he's going far beyond what he's entitled
David,
to do.
we need to let witnesses know. When he brings up this baloney about you can't contact a witness, that's wrong. Read 1512. Manafort is clean. They would never be able to prove this beyond a reasonable doubt when he just sends a note. He didn't try to kill. He didn't try to intimidate. He didn't try to harass. He just sent a message. And so it's just more blowhard.
Well,
and by the way, on the
let me move on, Congressman, if I can, because the Inspector General is about to issue a report. We thought he was about to issue a report, but it keeps getting delayed. The president tweeted about the delay. He said, "What is taking so long with the Inspector General's report on crooked Hillary and slippery James Comey? Numerous delays. Hope report is not being changed and made weaker. There's so many horrible things to tell. The public has a right to know. Transparency." Now, do you have any reason to believe that there is a deliberate effort to withhold or delay this report?
I am sure that every friend that Mueller and Comey and Rosenstein have been putting pressure on the IG to soft pedal back up. And so I don't have a lot of faith that it's going to be as good as it should be. And that's why the rest of us that have positions of authority need to make sure that we bear down on Mueller. He is violating laws. He has violating laws. And we need to bring him back within the realm of the rule of law.
And finally, how do we get hold? How does the public get a chance to see whether he has extended himself beyond his reach and get to look at this scope memo?
Well, I think we could do something in the House to vote to just stop him having even a dime to spend until he shows us what his authorization is. But you got even some Republican knuckleheads in the Senate just down the hall here who say, no, we need to let him do his job. Well, what is his job, for heaven's sakes? We need to find that out, and the Senate needs to wake up. Maybe they'll wake up in August when they're up here, and we can find out exactly what the course and scope of Mueller's job is.
You know what's nice to know, though, Congressman? What's nice to know is that tradition of the people in the House hating the people in the Senate lives on, doesn't it? Congressman.
I don't hate them. I just want them to do their job and to call Mueller on his lawlessness, because he's way out there. He has done too much damage to too many innocent people, and it needs to stop.